Stephen A. Smith. The problem with Stephen A. Smith is he keeps ending up on the wrong side of history when it comes to racial situations in America, when it comes to black African American subjects, when it comes to certain things that happen. He keeps ending up on the wrong side of history. And he's doing it on purpose. When the Colin Kaepernick thing happened, the kneeling situation, he ended up on the wrong side of that, wholeheartedly. He was on the wrong side of that for a long time. He stood 10 toes down in his belief that Colin Kaepernick was wrong. Even when it was explained to him why Colin Kaepernick did what he did. When the whole black community, or I should say 98% of the black community, African American community in America and around the world, stood in solidarity with Colin Kaepernick, one of the biggest voices on television, Stephen A. Smith, stood on the other side. And it was jarring, it was glaring. But he didn't stop there. When Kyrie Irving, when the George Floyd situation happened, when COVID happened, when racial tension arose in this country, Stephen A. Smith continues to pick the wrong side of the fence. And nobody's saying, if you don't agree with something, that's cool. But don't go out of your way. Don't go out of your way when you have such a huge platform to be counterproductive of what a majority of a group is saying or stands for. See, that's a problem. And his problem with Kyrie Irving, he took it way past basketball, where he should have been talking specifically about sports and the effects of Kyrie's decisions on sports. But he made it personal. He demonized that young man on national television in front of millions of people. He demonized them on an everyday basis. Everybody told him it was wrong. Stephen A. Smith, you wrong for this. You wrong for this. You demonizing this kid. And he continued to do it. To the point now, in current time, he's backtracking. Oh, I still stand on what I said on this particular part, but when it comes to this, I was wrong. And it's like, how do you keep ending up on the wrong side of history, man? And here's another thing, right? This is the biggest thing that people... Well, I'm not even going to go to that one. Let's talk about the O.J. Simpson situation. O.J. Simpson was just highlighted at the BET Awards. Black Entertainment Television, right? Stephen A. Smith went on his radio show, which has over 700,000 something subscribers and growing, and condemned BET and the black community and O.J. Simpson, accusing him of being guilty, accusing him of murder. That man did not get convicted of murder. That man was found innocent. And yet he demonized BET for highlighting a man that passed away recently that was not convicted of murder. And he's standing 10 toes down on it. And every time there's a situation where a black person, an African American person, is wrongly accused, unjustified, or sometimes even praised, he's on the wrong side of it. His stance is always in the negative. And here's something that a lot of people don't address, or a lot of people don't even pay attention to. But I pay attention to it. I've never in my life cringed or felt uncomfortable seeing a black person on whether it be national television or just in any setting, talk about racial issues, African American issues, historical issues, dealing with African Americans, Black Americans. I've never cringed hearing another black person talk about it. But for some odd reason, when Stephen A. Smith is on ESPN's First Take, when he brings up race issues, when he brings up African American issues, when he brings up the discrepancy between Black Americans and white Americans, when he talks about race, it just doesn't feel and seem genuine. It's cringeworthy. And I've never felt that way hearing another black man or woman talk about racial issues or racial discrepancies or anything dealing with race. I've never felt so cringe when I hear that. And when I hear him talk about race, when I hear him talk about racial discrepancies, when I hear him talking about anything pertaining to Black Americans, African Americans, our plight in this country, it's so ungenuine and it's so forced. It sounds like he's coming from a place of not knowing. It's like hearing somebody talk about something and you know they don't know nothing about it. That's what I take from when I hear Stephen A. Smith talk about black issues, African American issues. It's like hearing somebody talk. And you know they don't know what they talking about. They just talking. That's what I take from hearing Stephen A. Smith talk about race. It's like this guy don't know what he talking about. He just saying it because he thinks saying it is gonna get him brownie points. That's what I take from hearing Stephen A. Smith talk about race. And that's crazy because he's a black man that was born in America. So I hear him talk about race issues on ESPN First Take. I hear him talk about racial discrepancies. I hear him talk about all these issues I hear him bring up all these issues with black people. And it always seems, it never seems authentic. It always seems forced. And it's strange to me because it's like, even sometimes when he talks about race on ESPN, on the show that he's on, it's like the situations where the times where he brings up race, it's like, why are you bringing up race right now? Like, why are you using black and white in the context or the subject matter that you're talking about? It's like he always brings up, here's the thing, it's like he always brings up racial issues or the racial discrepancies between black and white when it's not needed, when he's on First Take. And the reason why he's so unauthentic is because he doesn't even know when to bring up racial issues or when to bring up racial problems. He always brings it up at the wrong time, or he uses racial issues. He uses it at the wrong time, or he uses it when it's not needed. And it's like, okay, if you somebody that studies history or knows your history, know the history of our plight in this country, you know when and when not to talk about racial issues. You know when to apply that to a conversation. And it always seems like he applies it to conversations that is not necessarily needed. And when he does speak on it or bring it to the conversation that's happening, it's like, okay, that was out of place. Like, you talking about race right now. What did that have to do with what we talking about currently? So it always seems like he uses racial situations to talk about in conversations that is not needed, or it's nothing to gain from it. And it's like, Stephen A. Smith, what are you talking about? Like, why are you talking about race right now? What does this have to do with anything? But that's because he has no clue about what he's talking about. See, Stephen A. Smith could have been exposed, but a lot of people are letting him live. Because just like Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, Stephen A. Smith's whole background and I hate to do this, man, but his whole background is literally falsified. You ever heard of somebody going in witness protection and the government giving them a whole new Social Security, whole new name, moving them to a whole new state? Almost like a created player. That's what Stephen A. Smith is. Stephen A. Smith, his whole background from school, college, everything has been made. It's almost like he's a character. He's playing a character. Some people will say, I'm not even going to go onto the quote-unquote conspiracy theory, but it's almost like this is somebody playing a character with no basis to anything they talk about. But that's Stephen A. Smith. And he's a problem. And here's the thing. When ESPN is done with him, because he currently wants to do with, see, the problem is Shannon Sharpe is doing what Stephen A. Smith wants to do somewhat. Stephen A. Smith wants to host late night television. Stephen A. Smith wants to interview the stars and celebrities. And Shannon Sharpe is already doing that on Club Shay Shay. So he's already a step behind. Shannon Sharpe started his own YouTube. Stephen A. Smith was already a step behind on that. He had the Stephen A. Smith show, but he didn't have a YouTube channel. He would have had, if Stephen A. Smith would have started his YouTube page 5 years ago, 6 years ago, he'd probably be at about 10 million subscribers by now. Because people do love to hear him talk. But he's behind on that. Now, if ESPN, he's losing his backing. He's losing his support system. And the thing is, because you stand on the fence or on the other side of the fence so much, when you do, or when ESPN does decide that they done with you, you ain't gonna have no support system. And that's the thing he ain't realizing. But also, that may be the thing he does realize, which is the reason why he's always on the opposite side of the fence when it comes to racial issues dealing with Black Americans, African Americans. And the thing about it that's even worse is he never even comes from a historical standpoint. And when he tries to use historical standpoints or when he tries to reference history, it's never in the right context. Now, what does that sound like? That sounds like somebody who is a plant that wasn't briefed, wasn't given a rundown on a subject matter that they need to talk about and discuss. But that's Stephen A. Smith for you people.